Despite signing for a record deal in the last offseason with the Philadelphia Eagles, Bryce Huff has found himself behind enemy lines. But what he said was actually a bit more revealing about his time in Philadelphia. We'll discuss that on top of the fact that the Eagles have two position groups ranked number one in PFF heading into the 2025 season. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Liam Jenkins, Corey Naito, and we're flipping the birds.
You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going
I'm sorry, that's on me. Like, I've never done a producer role before, and not only did I roll the wrong one, but I decided to try and roll the right one after it. So my apologies for ruining Brian's extremely smooth intro. But anyway, Bryce Huff sucks, so now I'll hand it back to Brian to carry on.
Welcome all to a fresh episode of Flipping the Birds. Like I mentioned before, Brian Cameron alongside Liam Jenkins, Corey Naito, and we're here to talk about everything Bryce Huff, everything PFF, everything Birds. But first and foremost, how you gentlemen feeling tonight?
Doing well. We had some nasty storms rolling through the area where I'm at. We were in a tornado warning, so that was a little weird, but doing well. And excited to talk another week of Eagles football. Sorry I missed last week. I was basking in the sun at the Jersey Shore, so a little R&R for this guy over here.
A little subtle brag. Okay, nice little bragging moment. How about you, LJ? Were you the tornado that's storming around the area?
Yeah, I mean, our weather's just been bizarre. Like, it's been heat wave, and then it's just England. It's either heat wave like oven level or just rain everywhere. But to answer Marshall Lynch's question, a decade now, so 10 years, and I still don't understand how intros work, which is really encouraging. But yeah, happy to be flipping the birds again. I know it's been I think the last time I was on an FTB would have been during the NFL draft. So it's been a little while since I've, given the dulcet British tones a spin on the FTB airwaves. So good to be doing it again. And a controversial topic to bask into and to unleash some chaos, I think.
Absolutely. So Bryce Huff was very candid on the SF Niners podcast, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of opened up about his time in Philadelphia, and this is actually what he said. If I'm being 100% honest with you, I wanted to trade like fairly early on, and just because of how things went in Philadelphia, I knew pretty early on it wasn't a fit. There's a plethora of things that went down. I don't want to get into specifics. Being in the league for 5 years, I kind of knew what it felt like to be in a good situation. I kind of knew where it was headed fairly early on into the season, probably even training camp, if I'm being honest. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't being a professional meaning you adapt to your environment, adapt to different situations? And how is the Jets a good situation as opposed to
Philadelphia? I mean, that was going to be my first retort, right? That like he knows what it's like to be in a good situation, and the only situation he's been in is pure misery. I don't think that's really a good barometer to go off. But I think, like, I tried to look at it logically with the Bryce Huff comments, because obviously I was very bullish at the time of this being like a long-term plan, and year one was always going to suck. But part of me just wondered if maybe, just maybe, being a younger player in the league, having one breakout year, there's an inflated sense of self-worth and that kind of thing. He's just been paid a mammoth deal. And Vic Fangio obviously has a very old school style of coaching, which has worked phenomenally with, if you look at the guys that have thrived this year, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, former Georgia Bulldogs, Milton Williams, former team captain at the collegiate level. Like, you're looking at guys that must be buying into that a bit more. And if Bryce Huff hasn't, and I can imagine there being a real culture difference from being what he thinks is a good situation to what's actually a good situation, because the standards go up and there's going to be a lot more expected of a player when you're being paid that much money. But if he's going to tap out because that's not aligned with his, dozy about New York, get put in on third down and have a free run to the quarterback, then that's fair enough. But yeah, very, very outlandish comments, I think, for sure. And I'm not sure what Corey made of them, but it just struck me as so confusing, like, given how he literally got out of Philadelphia. There was no need to look back in anger, if you pardon the Oasis pun. Or as my camera is doing, apparently. I forgot it's got that weird setting where it follows me around the screen. But yeah, what did you make of the comments, Corey?
Yeah, I mean, I listened to that whole podcast actually earlier today to make sure I got the full context. He didn't bash Philly in any regards, other than saying that he wanted and knew he wanted to trade early on. I think the situation aspect of his comment was more so he knew it wasn't a good fit because of his playing style. He's used to playing in that wide nine, put his hand down the dirt, and use all of his pass rushing moves that he has up his sleeves. I mean, you look at the tape, there's a reason why Howie Roseman signed him to that contract. I mean, you can fall in love with the speed, the athleticism, his ability to bend around the edge. But the biggest thing in this Vic Fangio defense, and you kind of alluded to it, Liam, is you have to buy in. And that's what these Georgia Bulldogs have done. They're used to winning. They're used to playing championship caliber football down in Georgia. No disrespect to Bryce Huff and the Memphis program, but it's not Georgia. It just isn't the same. And I think the telling thing was when Vic Fangio was asked last summer before training camp really got going, hey, what did you see from Bryce Huff and his ability to stop the run? And Vic basically kind of criticized Huff and said, do I think he can do it? Sure. Has he shown it? Not really. And it sounded like they were almost talking about some undrafted free agent rookie that they brought in and not a $50 million player. Luckily for Howie Roseman and the Eagles, he crushed the offseason with Saquon Barkley and others that I don't know how many other teams can just healthy scratch a $50 million player, especially during the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and not have a beat miss. So I was a little taken aback by it, but I don't think I was surprised because it seemed like this was the course of Bryce Huff's short tenure in Philadelphia when he knew in the summer that he wasn't going to fit in with this Vic Fangio defensive scheme. And basically, if you read and hear from other players like Nolan Smith, you have to be a complete football player. And then they say everything will take care of itself. And that's what these guys have been able to buy in. These pass rushers like Nolan Smith and the Kobe Dean, they've bought into, hey, I need to stop the run first because then that forces the opponent offense to be one-dimensional, and that's when we could pin our ears and just swallow up quarterbacks. So it didn't work out with Bryce Huff. I mean, I'm not one that's going to wish a guy, bad success. I think he might have a decent year back with Robert Saleh in San Francisco, back in that defensive scheme. So don't be surprised if Bryce Huff has more production.
So leave it to me to be the bad cop, I guess. That's what we're doing. Leave it to the bald guy. I have issues with this, right? Because obviously, me and Bryce Huff live in two different worlds. But if I apply for a job, I do research on the company. I make sure that it's a fit for me. And when I'm in interviews, they mention like, hey, we want to make sure you're a fit for us, but as well that we're a fit for you. It's common sense. When Vic Fangio was brought to the Eagles, everything was, was being brought about with Dolphins that, his scheme didn't fit, his style of play. If you're getting a contract offer for that amount of money, wouldn't you want to know beforehand that, hey, like, am I going to work in this scheme? Am I going to do well in this scheme? Like, you got to think like these guys, they have agents that get paid a ton of money to do the research for them and to say, hey, this is the best situation for you. I'm curious to know where the ball was dropped. And then I know Bryce handled it professionally throughout the season. He wasn't outspoken. He wasn't acting up. He wasn't acting like CJ. He wasn't putting hits out on people. But my thing with Huff is that you could have found a way to adapt. Like Brandon Graham was considered a bust when he was under Chip Kelly. He was considered a misfit in that defense. He wasn't going to work out. And he ended up being one of the better defensive players in Eagles history because he adjusted, he adapted, he fixed his style of play, and he happened to fit the schemes that came afterwards. Bryce Huff is not an older guy. He's not a vet. He's not a huge veteran. But I feel like he should be in position to adapt and to make things work. Like they're paying you a ton of money. If they pay me that kind of money, even if I'm failing, I'm throwing my hands up in the air as crazy as possible to make it look like I'm putting some type of effort. But it doesn't seem like we got that out of Bryce Huff, which I feel like it's a big question, like the Nick Young meme.
Yeah, I mean, Martian makes a great point saying if they're paying him that much money, he doesn't really care about fit either. And I've got to say, while he's on it, The whole chat tonight has just had me trying not to laugh throughout the entire conversation. I don't know what they've been eating this evening or what kind of mood they're in, but they're just amped right up, which is tremendous. But yeah, it's a really weird, unfortunate circumstance. I think, as you said, the Eagles got lucky where not only could they scratch a 50 mil player, but then it kind of coincided with Nolan Smith's breakout. Because in another world, like, Bryce Huff didn't get injured. He was struggling along the season, likely unhappy, going off his former comments. Nolan Smith's then not getting the extra exposure. His confidence might already get knocked. I think we all remember those first couple of sacks and like the almost euphoria that was coming out of him in the celebration. It felt like a real chip off his back and he could get rolling. And then you've got someone like Jalix Hunt as well. I've got to try and fix this camera. I have to bring the monitor down. Or stop moving around while I'm talking. But yeah, someone like Jalix Hunt is able to then take advantage of those extended snaps as well. But it's really weird. It's the first and only move I can remember in the last few years where it's felt slightly misaligned. Like, you remember like back in the day when I always go to this example, but Rasul Douglas was brought in and it felt like Howie wanted one thing out of a corner, Jim Schwartz wanted something else, and the player didn't quite marry up. And what the Eagles did here was gamble on potential. Had a great 10-sack season. I think 8 of them were pretty much free runs where he's just been dropped in pretty late. He was a situational edge rusher. And they're gambling on if he can develop his repertoire and begin to pace himself and become a full-time edge rusher, then you're going to be on to a superstar player. That hasn't happened. And in years past, Howie would have just stayed with it, and it just would have got rotten and it would have got stinky and it would have just ended in a really messy fashion. And you can go to so many examples where those ripples come in. And even going back to the previous regime with the autonomous forces. I thought you were talking to me, Brian. Sorry.
Was I on mute or no?
No.
Mute doesn't work. Sorry.
That's all right. But yeah, I think like to just recognize that early, that Bryce Huff is now kind of out of the picture and goes, you know what, this ain't working out. You want to be somewhere else. We were wrong. It's a low, like, they haven't paid that much for him. Like, at the time, that contract looked ridiculous and very inflated. And if you look at it now and what they paid him over that 1 year and where they got after that 1 year, it's like you end up recouping a draft pick. You end up getting a little bit back anyway. It doesn't really matter. You've got off scot-free, which is very rare for a contract of that magnitude. So if anything, it's just, I think, great awareness by Howie to cut a player free that wasn't going to fit. Like, they noticed it pretty quickly. That's fine. Like, you can't hit a home run on every single signing you make. And if Howie looks back with regret, I'm sure Bryce Huff's going to as well. That's part of it. But yeah, I think it's just overall disappointing because we all saw the potential. We were banking on there being that actual follow through, and it just never materialized. And I'm going to fix my camera now.
No, and I agree with you. I mean, yeah, he had one good year, but if you watch some of his film, I mean, he looked pretty solid as a Jet. I mean, if you look at that tape and take away like, hey, like he wasn't that good. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that when he was in New York. Now, again, he did not look like that same player with the Eagles, of course. He also played with a banged up wrist, but it just didn't work out here in Philly. And back to Brian's point, I think where the ball was dropped, what are you doing as his agent? Like, how do you not know, hey, you're going from a 4-3 front with Saleh, who ran the wide 9, and then you go to a 3-4 where the edge rushers, the outside linebackers, whatever we're calling them these days, they're typically standing up. So that's a big difference. And I mean, I didn't play football, but listening to players, there's guys that just prefer to be in a 3-point, 4-point technique. And that is the big difference for them, to just be in a more powerful position. So I like your point, Liam, about Howie knowing when to cut loose, because there easily could have been a chance where he wanted to prove to the fan base, like, no, this is a good move. We just have to force it and put a peg through a round hole. And instead he realized, hey, this guy's unhappy. Preseason didn't even start yet. And I'm sure they probably heard rumblings of a possible trade. Huff knew that it wasn't going to happen in the season, more than likely. I have to tip my cap to him. And Brian, you mentioned it. He did not make a stink of it. He could easily have been a distraction. He easily could have squawked about being a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl. he was there. He provided some depth. He made a couple plays. It wasn't worth the contract, and they were able to shed it. And they've got still a really impressive linebacking core that we're going to talk about tonight. So kudos on Howie Roseman. The one red X, if you will, on what was another phenomenal offseason for the GM.
I will say this really quickly, just to butt in and be a bit rude. I'm sorry, Brian. You mentioned the point about the agents, which is it just kind of sparked back this memory. So I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned it on PSN. If I have, it was a long time ago. But just before I quit my retail job to do this full time, so literally 10 years ago, I was doing work for an NFL agent, and basically he'd read a couple of my player interviews before the draft, was like, do you want to interview my guys? I was like, yes, because the more prospects, the better. And he was like, do you want to actually help me just break down some stuff? Because I think you're really good at this.
Remember you telling me about this?
Really good guy. And he was like, do you want to help me just break down tape and look at prospects and advise me on a few things? So I'm good at the money side of it. I'm not so clued up on the rest. So I was like, okay. And I won't name the prospect, one of the players he got through was really talented guy and just an absolute monster. I would say more comparable to Jordan Davis, but a little bit shorter and a little bit lighter, but like a clear nose tackle. And he went undrafted. And when it got to the workouts, he sent me an email saying, right, we've got workouts with, I think it was the Chargers, it was the Texans, it was the Raiders, and it might have even been the Jets. And I was like, okay. He was like, well, so what I need you to do is just make me a presentation on these teams, what they do with the scheme and what, the client can prepare for, to go into interview questions and the workout itself. So upon doing it, it just looked like every single team except the Texans was running just power defensive tackles. No one was running a 3-down or a nose tackle, which at the time I guess was a bit more common, but now you just see more of the pass rushing defensive tackles. But certainly a decade ago, it was the bigger, beefier guys. And literally every workout bar one was just not that. It was just going for these leaner defensive tackles, like the Fletcher Cox-esque kind of one. And I literally messaged him and was like, I've done this, and I'm a little bit concerned because I just don't think they're looking for a player of this magnitude. I sent all the depth charts. I'm like, they're stacked here, they're stacked there. The only team you've got a shot with is the Chargers, and it's just not the right fit. So I was like, are there no other teams? And he was like, the issue is that the teams we would want him on are already fully stacked. So we kind of just have to go with wherever there's a spot of the position and hope he can somehow fit into this square box of being a round peg. And just try to force it in. And he ended up going to the CFL and he made a career there, which was pretty cool. But I was just wondering, is the long-winded way of saying, is it the same with Bryce Huff, where if you've got a bit of an open market, how much of that is look, you might get 20 million, let's say, with the Giants. You could get 30 million with whoever, like the Patriots. But if you go with the Eagles and you get 50 mil, yeah, you're not quite a scheme fit, but we get you that gut front money. We get you a bit of security. You're a young player. You've had one good year. Let's just take the gamble. And if it's just that devil in the ear of maybe knowing that it's not quite the right fit, but trying to shoehorn it in there because that's the best chance he's got of capitalizing on the momentum that he's built. And I'd never thought of it like that until Corey just brought it up. But yeah, going back to the agent, I was so confused as to why he wasn't getting workouts. And he's like, well, the teams that have players in that mold do not need an undrafted guy to come in and work out because they've got the full depth chart. The ones that are offering workouts are just offering developmental spots and hoping they can find, again, someone to fit in that other hole. So just a different perspective on the agent thing. Maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not, but it's just a totally different world, I think, that you kind of think it like Madden and you go to, oh, they need a defensive tackle, we'll just sign this guy. But there's so much that goes into it. And if agents get desperate and they just want to secure the bag for a player or make sure he gets a contract, then you're often just going to sacrifice a little bit, whether it's pay or whether it's just scheme fit or culture fit. You see a lot as well of guys going to teams where they're just not fit for that environment. But yeah, there you go. I just wanted to kind of put that in there for some added context before I handed it back over.
No, and listen, that's a huge perspective on it, because now I wonder what Huff's market was looking like before he signed with, because he was actually the first signing for us on that Monday,
yeah.
And then after that is when we signed Saquon. So I'm very curious to see what his market was looking like and why the Eagles were convinced that this would be the proper guy to bring into this defensive scheme. But nonetheless, the defense showed out last season. We saw the rise of Jalen Hunt. We saw the breakout of Nolan Smith. We saw great things out of the defensive line. However, it's the second level group that's standing out right now, as PFF has ranked the Eagles linebacker group as number 1 heading into 2025, and this feels like not only a long time coming, but it doesn't feel real at all because I'm still stuck in the Nate Gary days when he turned his back against the quarterback and didn't know where the ball was going. But now we're Jahad Campbell, Zach Bond, Nakobe Dean, oh my God, Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Like they're pretty stacked with talent. But are you buying into the fact that this is the number 1 linebacking group in the NFL on, let's go with potential alone? Because obviously we haven't seen nothing out of Jahad yet.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I mean, there's Zach Bond. If you look at that PFF article, Zach Bond led the league with a 90.2 PFF overall grade, which led the NFL. Dean wasn't behind them far, and 11th at 77.4. You mentioned Jahad Campbell. We haven't really seen Jeremiah Trotter Jr. in a linebacking role, more so as a special teamer. And then that Smile Mondon Jr. I mean, nobody's really talking about him, but I think he can be pretty good. And the other guy that they got from Virginia Tech, they definitely have some depth here. When Nakobe Dean comes back, I think he's going to be good. I think the biggest X factor for this unit especially is going to be Nolan Smith. I don't think people are talking about him enough and how good he was last year. He turned it on and he, had a bit of a slower start again, but ended up having 10.5 sacks over his final 16 games and had 4 in 4 playoff games. So this is a guy who didn't even have a single sack or QB hit 4 games into the 2024 season. And then he puts those numbers up. So, I think how he's taking the approach of he's still not really all in on this position. I mean, Zach Bond truly was lightning in a bottle. I mean, there's no way that anybody could have expected a former special teamer, outside linebacker that didn't really do anything with the Saints, moved to on ball and just absolutely terrorize opposing offenses. Nolan Smith, a little undersized, but he had some big plays in the Super Bowl where he was able to stuff the run. Nakobe Dean had a great season before he got injured in that Packers playoff game. So, I mean, there's guys where they're not bona fide stars, so to speak, where if you look at some of these other linebacking cores that are listed, in this PFF, there's some really good talent in the linebacking positions, but I mean, there's potential there and there's no doubt about it. So if Campbell can be what people think he's going to be and healthy, I saw him for the first time in person at the Devontae Smith celebrity softball game a couple weeks ago. The dude is a tank. I mean, this guy, I know football players are big, but this guy, you could just tell, he is a unit. So, I mean, I think he's going to be fantastic when he finally gets healthy. Is it a little premature? Maybe, but hey, Eagles fans, as you mentioned, Brian, probably didn't have that on their bingo card coming into the season, that they'd have the best ranked linebacking crew. And, rankings and these power rankings are very subjective. But when PFF puts it out, for some reason, it seems to carry a little more weight in the media. So maybe we're just kind of biting into a juicy steak right now, and there's more fat than we think, but enjoy the rankings for now.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, obviously, I was a big Zach Bourne stan coming into the season, and I think it will go down, to be fair, as one of the best PSN YouTube moments of doing that stream the day he signed and being like, he's got something, he could be a starter, and then somehow watching that turn into, like you said, something that no one expected, which was just an absolute monster, and then earning that first Pro Bowl nod and getting all pro on it, then winning a Super Bowl. Deserved every bit of the contract. I think the Jahad Campbell drafting is absolutely magnificent. I think to get that kind of value there is huge. The wild card, of course, is Nakobe Dean, who is in that contract year, who is a bit banged up. I don't think he's going to be ready for week 1. It wouldn't surprise me if he's like an IR starter for the first 4 weeks or so. I think from then it's going to be a case of figuring out depth-wise, how heavy you go and the rotations and the way it looks. I mean, it's also interesting that They did add another nickel cornerback in Mac McWilliams this offseason. You've already got, Parry Nickerson behind Cooper DeJean anyway, so that's now a third. So maybe they're going a little bit lighter or a few more of those nickel packages. But as a group, like if you're talking 2 linebackers in a nickel formation, and those linebackers currently are Zach Bourne and a first-round pick who should have been top 10 had he not had some slight injury concerns, I think it's hard to disagree with it being anywhere away from the top number 1. Like if you're going to maybe add in the Kobe Dean's uncertainty, or like behind them is Jeremiah Trotter ready to go and take on an expanded role, I'm not overly sold on Mondon, just because I felt like there were times his effort lacked and he was a little bit sporadic tackling wise. But I think overall, again, just to go off the starters, like if you're going off a general depth chart perspective, you can't not love it. Like you cannot go into a season and just absolutely ooze adoration for Zach Bourne. The idea of Jahad Campbell being used as a blitzer, and then you've got, again, someone like Nakobe Dean, who is now proven to be a starter when healthy, and Jeremiah Trotter, who I think surprised me pleasantly. I wasn't his biggest fan coming out of college. I'm sure many of you remember. He ended up pretty good in my book. I think he definitely improved as the year went on. So, yeah, I think I'm all about it. And like Corey said, PFF, I think we've been so used to PFF just not being generous to the Eagles with rankings and the grades never quite marrying up. Or when they do, it's someone like TJ Edwards, and he's like a player that we all adore, and then he just ends up being all right. Or like Alex Singleton was another one who, great guy, great player. PFF loved him, and they're just not quite the same. So to get that kind of validation after a Super Bowl year, definitely hits a little bit different.
I think the group is going to be very interesting to see. And I'm like you mentioned, Nakobe Dean is in a contract year. So now, what are the Eagles thinking long term? Because if I'm not mistaken, Jordan Davis did get his option picked up. And you have Jalen Carter, who's going to be due for an extension soon. Nolan Smith's going to be due for an extension soon. Nakobe Dean's going to be due for something. Do you keep Nakobe Dean around this defensive unit still? Like, do you think the Eagles can get him on a cheaper deal? Or is it one of those things where it's like, we have Jahad Campbell for the next, so amount of years, and Dean's just on his way out?
I think it's tricky personally, because now you have invested in Campbell, who, look, he's a versatile guy. He can be used as a blitzer. He can be used as an all-out Mike. You can put him on the wing. It doesn't really matter where you line him up. I think the tricky part is to market that to Nakobe Dean and say, look, if you do he's going to know after that Super Bowl season that his price went up. Had he stayed healthy, the price would have gone up. So he knows he's a starter in the NFL now. He's got that in the locker. So he's going to have options. And for him, he could potentially end up saying, look, there's a reduced role in Philadelphia. The money won't be as good because we have to pay it to all these guys. Nakobe would be more than within his rights to bet on himself and look at the open market and see what's out there. And if I'm honest, I think his agent would advise him to do so. I don't think it's a decision the Eagles are going to be able to make, because I don't think no matter what they offer him, he knows he can be a starter. And as long as Jahad Campbell's in that picture, you're just not taking his spot. You're certainly not replacing Zach Bourne, which leaves a third. And I don't know if he's just that kind of linebacker on the outside. I think with the way Fangio runs his defense, they like having someone like Nolan Smith drop back into coverage, or Jalix Hunt is the perfect guy for it, who can sit on that outside at like a Sam or a Will position, rush the passer when needed. He's athletic enough to get into coverage. Nakobe is more of a Mike linebacker. And if Campbell's there, he's just not getting close to that. So I think the decision might be already on the wall for him. And if he takes it well, he's going to go and ball out this season, inflate his price if he, gets a hold of those opportunities and land on a new team. But if it comes down to it, I just can't imagine the Eagles being able to offer anything other than look, we can give you a rotational role on $8 million a year. And he's going to go, yeah, but I can go and sign with the Cleveland Browns for $17 million. And I go, yeah, well, fair enough. Have fun in Cleveland, and that'll be that. And just hope it doesn't turn into Bryce Huff 2.0, I guess would be for them, would be the other one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree there with what Liam said, and we didn't even talk about Jalix Hunt in this linebacking group. I mean, he came on, a great story as well, and I liked what I saw from him down the stretch. So I know some might think that they need a little bit more depth. Maybe some fans want a little bit of a more household name, so to speak. You've got Uche, who's again another flyer, and Brian's boy, Azeez Ojulari. So I mean, I think one of those two will need to step up to be a depth piece. And Brian and I talked about that a couple weeks ago on the pod. I think one of those two will need to step up to try and provide that depth if Howie doesn't go out and make a move. So I think it's one of the more interesting and entertaining position groups to keep an eye on during training camp. And yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of potential, and I think that's what PFF is kind of seeing, along with their grading scale, where Zach Bond led all linebackers on the grading scale, and Nakobe Dean was just outside the top 10.
Yeah, I think it's going to definitely be interesting to see. But moving on from the linebacker group, and you got my mind moving right now because of the Jalix Hunt and then a G's talk. But there's another position group that's number one, and it's a position group that's been number one, I feel like, for damn near a decade. It has to be, even though they haven't gotten the respect that they deserve throughout the time. The offensive line is ranked number one, and we have a lot of returning pieces: Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens. Right guard, we have no idea who's going to be there, but we know whoever they do plug in is not going to be as bad as Bryce Huff was on defense. So, I mean, is this a surprise for anybody? The biggest guys in the NFL, just like they belong in Philadelphia.
No, I mean, it was really weird. Sorry, Corey, I didn't mean to off it. I think, like, I broke this down yesterday when trying to go over the depth chart or like the roster prediction. And the only thing I could think of was that there just wasn't enough like veteran depth behind. Like, I know you've got Kenyon Green, I know you've got Kendall Lamb at tackle, but there just isn't. I don't know. I think like the Eagles lucked out with Mekhi Becton last year, just being able to rekindle that former first-round pick fire. And it's not that you need that depth. Like, you're not banking on someone like Mailata or Johnson going down. But I think the issue that they have is because they don't have that. They're going so all in on the development of these young guys that someone like Cameron Williams, for instance, is going to be hopefully a big part. You've got Drew Kendall, who's another one, obviously, this year. Holland Pierce, I believe, was a third. Like, it's so young beneath those core starters that I think, like, it's not just if it's number one now, like the long-term vision, if you've got Jeff Stoutland coaching them up, is that the next generation's already, slowly being, embedded in bit by bit. And they don't have to start right away. Like, we've seen guys come through. Nate Herbig is one where, he comes in, makes an impact for a bit as a former undrafted guy, and then goes on to greener pastures. Isaac Sayamale was another, started, had great success, went on to greener pastures. You just keep the conveyor belt going. Like, they know that Landon Dickerson's locked down. Lane Johnson's locked down. Jordan Mailata's locked down. The only question mark is Tyler Steen and that right guard spot. So for me, I think, like, if you're going to rank it number one overall, you need absolute certainty at every position. And it's not like me to be a little bit negative about the offensive front, but Steen couldn't beat out Becton last year. He's now going to hopefully have a much easier ride. You're banking on Stoutland, really coaching him up this offseason, and I hope that he's good to go. Like, I know he had a couple of spot starts and he looked good when thrown into the deep end. But yeah, I think they're by far and away the best, but there's still a little bit of me concerned about Tyler Steen and right guard, because he's now year 3 and he should have been able to have put his handle on that position by now, I think, in my opinion. And the fact that we're coming in and we still don't know if he's good enough is a little bit
options at right guard. It's who are the options at right guard? Is Steen, Green? I think Kerrigan is still there.
Yeah, you've got Matt Pryor as well, like who's come back. And then beyond that, I think it might end up being like it'll be one of the like Kendall or someone that will like swing out. But yeah, that's what I mean. It's not a ton of optionality there to kind of throw a guy in and hope for the best. Like, do you really want to bank on Kenyon Green, like just bailing you out? Not overly, but that's the only blemish. And the blemish is just an unproven player who everyone on that offensive front, including, Jason Kelce, believes can take that next step. So not the end of the world. I think it's still clearing away the number one overall, but just that little blemish is enough to keep me up at night and just go, I don't know. Like, I just really hope he has a good training camp. Like, I think he deserves it, and I think he needs it for his own confidence to assert that and go, no, I'm here now. This is mine. Like, no one's taking it from me for a second year in a row. Because if it gets to year 4 and that contract is coming up, like, that's a very unsteady part of the NFL to be in.
Yeah, for those who did not see the rankings from PFF, Mailata was ranked the top left tackle in the game last year, 95.2. Dickerson ranked 8th at left guard, 78.6. Juergens was 14th out of 40 centers at 65.6. Tyler Steen ranks 75th out of 77 right guards, and as Liam mentioned, kind of keeps you up at night. And then Lane was the 5th best right tackle out of 81 graded. So across the board, you've got
the 5th best right tackle. Come on now.
You got three of your 5 starting O-line inside the top 10. I don't know if you guys saw this. Can you name the second best offensive line ranked by PFF in this?
The New York Mets.
I mean, my head would have said San Fran, but they all got battered, didn't they, halfway through the year?
Yeah,
so it wouldn't have been.
Trent Williams is always trying to take a year off or holding out for something.
It's a team the Eagles are playing this season.
Green Bay?
Dallas?
The Denver Broncos.
Wouldn't it? Okay. Yeah, wouldn't have put money on that.
Yeah.
Buffalo 3, Chicago 4, Indy 5, 6 Tampa, 7 Minnesota, 8 Atlanta, the Jets 9, and the Chargers round out the top 10.
The Jets have the 9th best? That's interesting.
Well, at least PSN's own Matt Watson will be very happy with that. Like it's the first Broncos-related celebration he's had in about a decade, so we'll give him that one.
But to put a bow on this and what Liam said, I think these offensive linemen, they found a system with Stoutland. It's almost like they have this magician, and they're just gonna keep cycling in physical specimens through the draft, through free agency, take flyers on them, and let Stoutland mold them, and just mold them to be a decently strong chink in the chain, if you will, like a link in the chain. That's what they need to be. You've got 3 really good ones, as I just mentioned. Juergens is becoming into his own at center, and you get a 5th one where he doesn't have to be the best because he's surrounded by some of the best, but he just has to be good enough where he doesn't get obliterated off the snap. And that, I think, will be more than good enough to kind of help this offensive line continue. So I'm excited to see that right guard battle. I agree. I think Steen should have the inside track, although I'm sure it's not going to be given to him, but he needs to take it by the horns, like Liam said, for his own good and for the confidence boost for him and for the offense, I feel like.
I would like to know what the contract for Jeff Stoutland looks like. Because it has to be like a lifetime deal. Like, just you get anything you want in this world, just make sure you only work for us.
Do you see he loves cooking? I came across a social media video. He was doing a Italian dish recipe.
Well, we know he loves cooking because he cooks. Yeah. He definitely cooks over so many Eagles kitchen.
But the man is a magician at everything he does. He made Andre Dillard look good, revived Mekhi Becton, praying to God he could revive Tyler Steen and actually solidify that right guard spot that's been kind of haunting the Eagles for the last couple of seasons.
Just really quickly on that, isn't it nuts that for a brief second we probably all forgot Andre Dillard existed, and that was a 1st-round pick, like only a few years ago.
Where is he now?
Exactly. Exactly. Like, and within a few years, it doesn't even matter. Like, no need, because you've somehow turned Jordan Mailata into the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, it's ridiculous. The man he's just unreal. I don't know. We need like a full biopic on Jeff Stoutland, because like there's no way he hasn't had interest for offensive coordinator, maybe even head coaching roles or anything, and he just doesn't seem interested in any of it. And he's so happy in Philly. Like, I think, if I'm honest, like, and this might be looking into it too much or being too cliche, I think he just loves his guys. Like, I think the relationship he has with Kelsey and Lane, you can go back to Jason Peters. Like, these are guys that are on the team for 8, 9, 10 years, and you're with them every year and you're improving them, and you build up such a rapport that I just don't think he wants to leave it. I think he is a true player's coach in the purest sense.
Yeah, and to add to that, I just found an article that's on the Eagles website from 2 years ago, and he's quoted saying, "It's my family, it's been my family, and I couldn't be in a better place." So I just think he legitimately bleeds green. I mean, to be kind of cliche and corny, I mean, this guy doesn't care about being an offensive coordinator. And I kind of get the sense he just likes being with those guys. He likes being physical. He likes roughhousing. He likes the technique of it. And I thought it was a very good point. I was listening to a podcast earlier today, and years ago, people would kind of complain, I feel like, or be disappointed that their team would draft an offensive lineman with their first round pick. It was a boring pick. It wasn't splashy. With today's technology and the accessibility that we have, I've thoroughly enjoyed watching like Baldy breaking down tape, others breaking down tape of these linemen and how finesse they are with their footwork and how athletic these 300-pound, 6'5" behemoths are. Whereas a couple of years ago, I'm like, great, another lineman, like whoop-de-doo. And now they're quite literally paving the way to historic seasons like we saw last year. So I think it's just a perfect fit for Stoutland, and obviously he thinks so as well.
They also have that other kid on the international. I always forget what it's called. Laken Vakalahi, the Australian kid.
I'm not going to try and correct you because I'll make it just as bad. So you,
I'm 1,000% sure I butchered it, but it could be. Hey, he's a tackle. It could be the Lane Johnson replacement for the future. But I'm curious to see what Stoutland continues to do with this offensive line. So we've covered the Bryce Huff drama. We've covered the great perspective of the linebacker group as well as the offensive line. Eagles training camp. Corey, keep me honest because you've been haunting me about this. It's around the corner, right?
It is, yeah. The 22nd, I believe, is the first day of training camp. So fingers crossed. Hopefully, PSN will get some access and we can bring our fans some awesome content and interviews and stories for social and the website. But yeah, it's getting here, guys. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, the first preseason game is actually at the end of the month. If I saw that correctly, it's not. Yeah.
I thought did they do that to like give the players almost like a mini bye before week 1, right?
It's a Hall of Fame game, which is now on July 31st.
I never understood those games.
What, the Hall of Fame game?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'm not being funny. If I was an NFL legend and my statue just got unveiled at Canton, like the last thing I would want to see is like the Browns and the Dolphins third stringers playing in my honor. But game's the game. I mean, I'd rather just have a presentation and my family give me a round of applause. I would have to sit through 90 minutes of that, but it's fine.
At least, it's the Lions and Chargers third stringers this year.
Oh, even better.
A lot of Dan Campbell on the sidelines. Yeah, it's definitely been interesting. Now, honestly, the season approaching, it's gonna be a very exciting season just to see. I don't know about you guys, and I think Liam, you kind of wrote an article about this yesterday. Like, this doesn't feel like the 2018 Eagles that they were dealing with a Super Bowl hangover. This feels like a more professional version of the Eagles, where a lot of the core is together, and this could possibly be a good thing going forward. Like, I'm not saying repeat, but there's at least a very strong possibility that they can repeat because of the nucleus they have on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so weird to go from like one team to the next. Like 2018 was marred in so many ways with Carson's injury and coming back too quickly, and then the old anonymous sources, and there was just coaching friction and coaching ego. And I think that was a really underrated and unfortunate part of it, was just Peterson was going to die by his sword, and that was that. And I think a lot of people lost their voices screaming "run the ball" nonstop for most of that year. Even though 2018 they went 9-7, the aftermath of 2019 was where it all just really kind of fell apart. So it was a kind of dragged out sort of Super Bowl hangover. Whereas I think, like, and I wrote this in the article, the best thing about Sirianni is his selflessness, and the fact that even last season when he gave up play calling, everyone was quick to hop on the hate train and say that he's a glorified cheerleader and he's not doing anything. Like, what's his value outside of just being...
like this? Okay, I thought we were friends, man. Come on. Gosh.
It's like, what's his value outside of just hyping guys up and being overly emotional when Jalen Hurts is just looking on, going like, what are you doing? Like, we're up 6. Like, and that's fair. And then you look at what Kellen Moore did, and you look at how the offense evolved, and the intricacies that were involved in it, and you get it a bit more. And now you know that, all right, well, the coaching ego is not going to be an issue because Sirianni's already done the most egoless thing, which is go, you know what, I'm bad at this maybe, or I'm hurting the team in some capacity, so I'm just going to hand it over to a guy that I trust a bit more than me. Now, there could be a bumpy period, don't get me wrong, with another offensive coordinator change. At least it's someone that Hurts has been familiar with this time. But I think like that was a big deal of having a coach that can just go, do you know what? I'm hands off. It's not my battle. You guys do it. And I'll just kind of, get the pom-poms in the air for a little minute. And then outside of that, you've just got a roster that is just so much more secure. Like the entire offense, if you just run through it, Smitty, AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, everyone on the offensive line except for Cam? No, except for Steen, I beg your pardon. And then obviously Jalen Hurts and Dallas Goedert has just been signed as well. But anyone not named Tyler Steen or Dallas Goedert on that offense is signed at least through 2028, which is nuts. Like it's going nowhere. So you've got a stable group of players. You haven't got to worry about contract disputes. The defense is a slightly different scenario, but you've got a lot more younger talents coming through. Quinion, Cooper. You can even look at Jahad Campbell this year. You've got Nolan Smith, who's got a couple of years left. Like there's just so much upside. So they've got, in my opinion, a huge opportunity to just completely obliterate any concerns of a Super Bowl hangover. Whereas 2018, it was the first time. You're not really sure how to handle it. Which players do you let go? How do you replace the ones you let go? That was a certain struggle for them. And luckily this time, they don't have a quarterback controversy as well, which is certainly a nice addition.
So, question here for me. Last year, obviously, 2-2 start, almost lost to the Browns. Bye week comes, sky was falling, team wasn't good, and then they do what they do. Bye week's not until week 9. First 4 games, Dallas at Kansas City, home against the Angels, and then at the House of Horrors of Tampa Bay. If they start 2-2 again this year, or 2-3, Los Angeles. Did I say Angels?
You said Angels. Threw me off.
Los
I saw
Angeles.
Mike Trout in my head.
Los Angeles. They start 2-3. Is the panic button going to be pushed by the fans? You think?
As long as Flipping the Birds lives, the panic button would always be pushed. No, but I think and Liam kind of mentioned this, but I think Sirianni has earned our patience, and I feel like that's not something that goes with Eagles fans at the end of the day. Like we're not a patient group, but he's earned it in his own right. From arriving here, he's done everything in his own way, and while we've criticized him for it, he's panned out on the right side of it. I mean, he hasn't missed the playoffs since being here. You don't really hear a lot of bad things about him. Last year's Super Bowl run was just he stood, and I mention this every week on Flipping the Birds. Like, I hated the fact that he made himself look foolish at times in front of the media. And I know, he couldn't really control it. I wanted him to kind of take a little bit of a step backwards and just, be kind of one word to everybody. Just focus on that. Just don't give too much information. And you did see him kind of transpire where he wasn't giving too much information to the media anymore. He was actually just focusing on getting his team together. He dealt with the Jalen Hurts controversy where people were saying Hurts didn't like him. He dealt with the AJ Brown versus Jalen Hurts controversy where even Brandon Graham said that the two weren't on the same page. He somehow, some way contained CJ Gardner-Johnson, who was playing real life Grand Theft Auto out here. And you're seeing like he's earned our patience. He's earned my I won't say he's earned my forgiveness. He's earned my apologies in this matter. I will never riff on him again. I will never speak badly about Nick Sirianni. But in this day and age, like this guy is who we wanted him to be. He's a top coach, whether he gets the award or not, or he gets the accolades or not, or the recognition. He's a leader amongst men, and I think that's what fits the city and fits this group. And in my opinion, he's definitely earned the patience.
Yeah, I think we're all a little bit quick probably after the start in 2024. I think I was certainly asking questions.
Come on, I already apologized.
I was certainly bad for it, but I think again, like what you're saying is bang on, Brian. In that I think Sirianni has earned our patience. And realistically, if they start slow, they start slow. It is what it is. There's never been a reason to doubt this team up until now. And it also kind of parlays with another question of like, at what point then, because you kind of can't have like a subpar season from Sirianni now without it being a weird compound. Because you know all the radio stations would be the same, where it would be, oh, but they started 2-2 last year, and then the year before that, and all these other like gremlins that are going to come up out of the blue. And it's just going to be this weird like hate party against him again, where it's any criticism that they've had, it's like he doesn't coach anymore. Now they're losing. Now there's another bad coordinator. Like, at what point do you just go like, oh, at what stage is it fire Sirianni? Like, is it you miss the playoffs and it's 8 wins? Is it 6 wins? Like, is it just 2 years in a row of missing the playoffs after winning a Super Bowl? Or does that buy him time? And I think for me, you have to give him time, because this has been a long-term plan. And it goes back to that draft class with Milton Williams in, which I believe would have been 2019, if I'm not mistaken, 2019, 2020. That was like the first one for me, the first domino to fall of these high character, leadership, value-based players who were all team captains, all had connections to the team. Then you had the Georgia Bulldog era. And then it's just been a case of building stability. And you've got that now, and they're ahead of schedule. This isn't a Super Bowl window. It's, can you build a premier championship team and keep it there without ever needing to go through that, blow up the team and redo it again? And they've got all the pieces to do that. Doesn't mean they're going to win the championship every year. Doesn't mean they're going to make the playoffs every year. But they've got the pieces to do it. And they've got the coach who the pieces believe in. So until that changes, if the players unanimously come out and Jalen Hurts sits there with his arms in the air going, I can't do this anymore, I think we're patient. And even if they're 1-5, we have to just grit our teeth and go, it's fine, they will be fine, and just deal with it, I think.
Yeah, he's come a long way since his watering the flowers in the garden comment in his initial presser. So I just wanted to ask that. Didn't mean to, get off topic a little bit, but we're kind of talking about the team, and you were talking about the Super Bowl hangover. So yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly fair, and I agree on all points.
I will say really quickly, it's Ron says, if they're 1-5, I'm panicking. I know this is going to come back to bite me in the ass if they do go 1-5, and I'm sat screaming at 1 a.m. about how everything's gone tits up. So if that does happen, just please remind me of my words on Wednesday, July 9th at 1 a.m. UK time, so I can calm myself down.
They will. They will. Well, listen, we appreciate you guys coming out and watching us today. And we appreciate the support you've given us on our YouTube channel as we continue to trudge along. We'll be back live next week, not this Friday, but next Tuesday we'll be back. And then, until next week, I'm Brian Cameron alongside the sleep-deprived Liam Jenkins and Corey Naito. And we're flipping the birds. Flip